Idols are an English post-punk, post-hardcore band hailing from Bristol, and they broke out last year with their debut album titled Brutalism. Brutalism was in my top 10 of 2017. Fucking ferocious, politically charged, anthemic as hell punk album that I just fell in love with, despite the fact that there aren't that many punk albums these days that I can genuinely say I love, but Brutalism was certainly one of the first in a long time. Not to say I don't like punk music or there aren't any good punk bands out there anymore, that's not what I mean, but what I do mean is that for a debut album, Idols left a mark. They really left a mark, and they came through with a friggin' great release with that one. And Joy as an Act of Resistance is like just over a year later from their debut album. It's pretty impressive that they've come through with an album so quickly. There's always that notion that can the band live up to their debut? Will it be a sophomore slump? That kind of stuff. And well, is it or is it not? Well, now they're just SJW punk. This is just SJW punk. No, seriously, this is a fucking great follow-up album. Seriously, man, I was not expecting it to be this good. I ignored all the singles leading up to the album because they released quite a lot, and I don't usually like it when bands do that. I just want to go into it raw and not knowing what to expect, because I feel like that's just so much more fun doing it that way. That was exactly how I went into their debut album, not knowing anything about them, and it was friggin' fantastic. And their sophomore album, once again, they've proven that they are absolutely an essential punk band in the modern day. Now, if you thought that their debut album was political, I will say that this album, I think, gets even more political and even more socially aware, perhaps, tapping into social themes, tapping into issues within society. And I've mentioned so many times on this channel that politics in music and social commentary music gets annoying when it's overdone and can get oversaturated, and a lot of bands tend to really, go over the same points, rehash ideas that we've heard many times before without really having a greater understanding of what the meaning behind what they're saying is. Sometimes it's like, oh, they're just saying it for the sake of it. They want to get in on the trend of talking about issues and stuff like that. That's how it always comes across to me. But with Idols, I do not get that at all. Like, I genuinely feel the passion, the energy, the anger, the frustration coming from Joe as a singer. Like, it's all coming from within inside him. He is just hammering through with everything that's going on in his brain, and it comes out incredibly well. Now, the absolute best thing about this album, though, is how they tackle these things and these issues. Like, it's not all serious the whole way through. There's humor. They take satirical angles and just throw in ridiculous lines and stuff like that. And the thing is that you could easily just make like this kind of album without the humor element, and it'll probably just end up being kind of dull, kind of preachy, just in your face without it necessarily having any impact. But once you add the humor arc, I think it becomes way more relatable. It becomes way more tangible, and it just becomes like much more enjoyable than it would be without the humor, because obviously people relate to the humor, and even if you don't agree with everything being said, you can appreciate how it can make you laugh and how funny it is in a satirical way. Because this is a very left-wing album. Like, Idols are very overtly left-wing, they're very anti-establishment. It's pretty much your meat and potatoes punk album in a sense, in that kind of sense. But, if you're not fully left-wing, like, for example, I'm not like a full-on left-winger, I'm probably somewhere in the middle, but that doesn't mean to say that I can't enjoy what's being said on this album because of that satire. And I just think Idols as a band have nailed it. They've nailed how to make this kind of music like so good. I just don't know how they've done it, but they found a way. And when you tie that in with how fucking good some of these choruses are, like, holy shit, they are anthemic as hell. They are catchy as hell. I'm Danny Nedelko. It's just a full-on, like, anthemic track that you could probably, like, start chanting a football match and it wouldn't sound out of place. Danny Nedelko. It's just so fucking good. Like, you just can't get it out of your head once you're done. And the I'm Scum song as well, the chorus on that one just fires through, and that is just catchy as hell. Television as well, another soaring chorus that just hits hard as hell. And Joe as a singer just has this gruff to him that is just so good. Like, when he hits it, like, at its full pelt, it just sounds amazing. Cause I smash mirrors and fuck TV. The amount of quotables on this album, man, are just unbelievable. Like, on the first track, was it the second track, where he tells the person, you look like a walking thyroid? Just lines like that, holy shit. They just make no sense, but they're just so hilarious. Then there's the track Gram Rock, which is a full-on sketch of a song. Like, it's a comedy sketch essentially turned into a song. It's really cleverly done. So basically the song follows these two drugged up bankers that go to a funeral, and the entire song's just based around that. Like like, it's just the most random thing, but the song itself is really funny. Like, the opening line, I'm sorry your grandma's dead, lovely spread. Like, the way he says that is just unbelievably hilarious. And then, like, the 10 points to Gryffindor refrain that comes on later on. Man, Joe is a mental man, but I do love him. But then they still manage to, like, tackle the harder hitting stuff really well on the album too, even if there's that satire element on it attached somewhere in the mix. Like, they still actually throw in some really cool concepts and messages on the album. I'm sure if you've heard this album already, you will know I'm talking about the track Samaritans, which is a track that tackles, like, masculinity. And the way Joe describes this album, if you look in interviews, he said that it's essentially a disease in the brain, which I don't agree with that. Like, I don't think you can go as far as saying that masculinity is that bad. It's really, like, a bit over the top. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm not the most masculine guy ever, you know. I have facial hair, but I don't particularly have a deep voice. I don't really have muscles or whatever. But I can definitely say that saying masculinity is a disease is a bit too far. But when you actually go into the song, it's actually done really well. The way he's talking about you never see your father cry, you know, all the things that he was told as a child as well, like, man up, stop crying, you know, all those kind of stereotypical things that might be said to boys when they're young, so then they grow up thinking, oh, I can't show my emotions and stuff like that. It's actually something that's really potent, and I think it's something that people should be aware of too, because, like, you know, everyone can cry, but there is that sort of stereotype, like, you're weak if you're a male and you cry or you show your emotions, it's considered a weakness, which isn't necessarily true. And I like the way he tackles this on this song. It's a really good song. On this album as well, we get songs tackling nationalism, the one obvious one being Great, which is an ode to Great Britain and how recently, you know, British people voted to leave the EU, which had a big uproar, and people thought of it as people were trying to, you know, get rid of the foreigners and all that kind of stuff. But again, as I've said, I'm not fully of this mindset that idols come from all the time. So listening to this song, to me, feels a bit like a straw man type argument. Like, there were actual genuine reasons as to why people wanted to leave the EU, and there were genuine reasons as to why people wanted to stay in the EU. But it ended up becoming like this big mess of a shit show, and the arguments that people were throwing forward had nothing to do with, like, anyone's reasons, and it just all became silly. And, you know, I think on this track they're probably playing it again from a satirical angle, but I think some of the lines here are a bit questionable, but still, as a song, it sounds pretty great. And I must say, the heart is in the right place too. I don't think they're doing anything that's wrong on this track. They're certainly showing their concern for the future and the future of their country, as anyone else would too. So I can't really attack this song, but it's just occasionally on this album there are some straw man type arguments that I just don't think fit any sort of character anywhere. But again, it's that satire that just compels me the whole way through, because on this exact same song there's a line about a man crying at the price of a bacon bap. So it's like, even though you can look at these lines and take them seriously, I don't even think idols take them seriously themselves. So you can't really overanalyze everything here. There's even a track on here, Television, that tackles beauty standards, how on television they've made you want to look a certain way. I actually do think this might be in reference to reality TV shows, especially shows like Love Island, which have been huge this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if Joe was writing looking at how people perceive themselves through shows like that, because the people on those kind of shows are ridiculously beautiful. They're carved like Greek gods. It's just ridiculous, to be honest. And again, they're attacking that idea because it's a ridiculous thing that you don't need to rely on other sources to tell you how you should look. So the seriousness of this album and the satire blends together really well. There's a good mixture of both. I would just say that perhaps sometimes the lines get blurred. Sometimes are they being serious, sometimes are they just joking, but it kind of doesn't matter in the end, because you can just interpret it any way you want and it still becomes enjoyable, because the music is just that good the whole way through. It throttles, the playing in the band is just so good, it's ferocious, like I've already said. The instrumentals are pretty damn fantastic. Perhaps the production is a bit muddier than Brutalism, which I didn't really like at first, but the more I listened, the more I got used to it, and it ends up being pretty good. It just has everything there to make a great socio-political punk album. Anthemic songs, just really clever commentary, satire, all that kind of stuff. It just really hits hard extremely well. Idols are honestly one of a kind. I mean, they've created a frigging fantastic album here once again. Not quite as good as Brutalism in my opinion, but it's up there with one of the best of this year, undoubtedly. The way they speak truth to power and have that self-defeating attitude on tracks like I'm Scum just gives them the energy and everything that they need to just fire away and just give you a one-of-a-kind punk album that you just will not forget. I'm gonna go 8.5 out of 10. Great friggin' album. Please go listen to this if you haven't already. Let me know your thoughts if you have listened to this album. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews. Have a good day. And yeah, great album. Goodbye.